Greetings, one and all, those who are visible here. A new seminar of the Australian University College of Divinity's Theology Research Network, which the network organizes for, well, hopefully the usual 2-year cycle together with the university's graduate research school. And we have here Professor Constantine Campbell, icon. And just before I introduce the speaker, Mina, could you please take off the whatever the PowerPoint just for a moment, please? Thank you so much. A moment of joy that things are happening in this area, in this space. One of our speakers earlier in the year at the seminar, Professor Peter Butenev from St. Vladimir's, co-edited this solid volume together with a colleague, I assume, Christina Maranch, Rethinking Sacred Arts. So things are happening in the world. This is a 2025 volume published by St. Vladimir's Seminary Press. As our viewers might know, Professor Butenev is very involved there, not only in theological studies, but also in the area of sacred arts. He has founded an institute for the study of the sacred arts, and it's a joy. We had him with us in Australia, in Melbourne and Sydney, and I was happy to receive this copy of the book. Now, before we move on, I acknowledge the Garigal clan of the Guy Marigal people upon whose ancestral lands I live, and I pay respect to their elders past and present, to the wisdom of the First Nations of this land. I pray, Lord, that you guide us, especially Mina, our speaker tonight. Guide us to your wisdom, to perception and understanding, so that we are able together, while listening to him and interacting with him, to arrive at a synthesis of the theological discourse, the spiritual backdrop of that discourse, and of the Christian arts, to the glory of your kingdom, Lord. Amen. So once again, welcome to this first seminar of the second semester 2025. We are exploring the intersection of the arts, spirituality, and theology. And for this semester, Professor Campbell and I decided that we should go more thematically than the actual series, and therefore we'll have 3 seminars, which are already set for August, September, and October, where we will be listening to scholars who work in this area from different Eastern and Oriental traditions. Tonight, our speaker, Mina Samy, is a lecturer in liturgics at St. Cyril's Coptic Orthodox Theological College with our university, and he will be talking to us about the project that he's involved with, together with real artists, isn't it? Synaxis, and the title of his presentation is Bringing Ancient Coptic Art to the Digital World. Mina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Father and Professor Campbell. It's great to be here, and it's a pleasure. This presentation is about Synaxis, this Coptic liturgical mobile and desktop application that I have developed, and how I tried to revive within it some lost Coptic art. As someone who studies Coptic liturgy, I review ancient manuscripts such as this all the time. And here we see the typical thing that we see in Coptic studies: you see here on the left Coptic text, and on the right Arabic. The more significant thing about this manuscript in particular is that the scribe does not hold back in terms of illuminating the manuscript and making the liturgical book beautiful. And this is something that I don't think I have ever seen in books that are printed today. And with my studies, my eyes have gotten so much used to this kind of thing. When I wanted to create this liturgical app, I wanted to try and pay homage to all of this rich tradition. Now, to be clear, there was always ancient books that were ugly still. But I think there was a lot more potential to do this kind of thing back then, even by hand, than we have today with the modern technologies that we have. And I think part of it has to do with the invention of the printing press. When Gutenberg first invented this machine, he called it artificial writing. And I'm sure everybody knows that he borrowed the idea from a wine press. So he adapted a machine that you would arrange letters. So you would create the letters first in some kind of mold. You would arrange the letters in the shape of a page, and it would be pressed down on the paper. And that meant any kind of illumination or anything that is not black letters had to be done by hand after printing. Now, in this period, we still see some effort in making manuscripts still look more than just black text. So even his Gutenberg Bible is not just black text. You see here on the top left, there is ornaments. All of this red ink is applied manually after the printing is done. And I think gradually the desire and the ability to do this manual work dwindled down. And so to show you how this happened in Egypt in particular, share a very short story that printing really came to Egypt with Napoleon, with the French Inquisition. He brought with him 50,000 men to Alexandria, hundreds of horses, and 22 printers. It was probably the greatest legacy the French left behind in Egypt. And if we have a look at the very first things that were printed there, you see what you see here. So on the left, this is a French-Arabic dictionary. As you see, this is very simple. There is no manual anything. There is simply letters and there's black lines. And that's all these really printers were interested in doing. But still, printing was a huge success and an incredible invention. And so even within the church, the Egyptian church, Pope Cyril IV wanted to buy a printer for use in ecclesial matters. In his time, only a single press existed in Egypt. It was used by the government. And he was the one that arranged for a printer to be brought from Europe to be able to print liturgical books. He requested from the government that 4 Coptic men go and be trained in this press. And it was such a big deal that when he had heard that the printer had arrived in the port in Alexandria, he requested of his clergy to receive the printer in a procession, wearing their liturgical vestments and with hymns. This was how much he valued knowledge and how much he valued this invention that is going to transform the life of the faithful. And great as it is in the time then, when we jump a few hundred years now to the present, and we look at our liturgical books, they all really look the same. They don't really look much different than, that French-Arabic dictionary that was printed a few hundred years back. Black lines, black text, and there isn't really that much to it. And I think it's not just limited to Egypt. So here you have 2 other examples. we have a similar story happening outside of Egypt too. And so it was the same with liturgical apps. So in commonly used liturgical Coptic apps today, at least, they just look the same, right? It's just text. And so I think something has shifted in our mindset regarding beauty and aesthetics, and we are now very much geared towards utility. Things are only done when they are practical. Yeah. And so to show you some of the inspiration that pushed me in this direction with this new app, this is the 14th century manuscript that you saw at the very beginning. It's a Coptic psalmody manuscript. Psalmody is the midnight and morning offices of the Coptic Church. And you can see here the scribe follows a similar pattern with every big section in the manuscript. He has a particular header on the right-hand side. You see it at the top. And the header is going to cover the top of the page. And he will have a particular design, typically involving some kind of cross on the left. And we see this kind of it's not unusual to see this kind of thing in manuscripts. The special thing about this one in particular is that the scribe seems to not be content with just repeating the same patterns. In fact, he's always doing a new thing. There isn't a repeated design in all of this. And so to think of how much time this would have taken, how much time would have been to master these designs before, putting the final thing here on the page. But probably took months to finish this manuscript alone. And I imagine it was also part of an ascetic practice. I imagine this was part of not just doing a manuscript because they wanted to be used for practical purposes, but also because the scribe wanted to get something out of it. He wanted to find his practice, his handiwork, edifying. And of course, edifying the reader. What you see on the left here, of course, this is the Alpha and the Omega at the top and the bottom. And this is Jesus Christ, Son of God. I imagine those are very common across other traditions too. And so on and so forth. You get the idea. There's so many designs in this manuscript. One thing that especially caught my eye was the headers. And so I wanted to replicate this header in the app. And with that, let me introduce you to the first artist that I brought on to help with this project, Jessica. I will leave you here the Instagram pages so you can follow them if you like their work. Jessica has been doing some kind of similar work, as you can see on the left-hand side here. This is a Coptic book that is due to be printed sometime later this year. And it's motivated by the same things that I'm talking about here. A group of people who have studied liturgical manuscripts and they want to bring this beauty back into the printing world. And so this is the design that Jessica worked on before, and I thought we would be able to also do the same thing here with this app. With a book, things are a bit more straightforward because you can just replicate the design and print it. In this case, with an application, my issue was that there are all kinds of devices out there with different screen sizes. And so Jessica's first idea was, let's create a short design and a long design. And let's say if a user is holding their phone, in portrait like this, we will show one. And if they flip it to landscape, we will show the other. But I really wanted to maintain the fidelity of the design without any stretching of the header. And so what I asked of her was, please don't do one design. I want you to do pieces of a puzzle for me. So as you can see here, the design, it's got piece number 1 on the very left and piece number 3 on the very right. Piece number 2 repeats in the middle. And so what she did was create these 5 pieces. And that's what she gave me, and now it was up to me to kind of put it together. And so as the user comes and uses the app, I actually measure the screen to see how many of these, so this piece here, number 2, do we need to fill the screen. And so this is the end result that we came up with. If the user has a wider screen, all what happens is they just get more crosses in the center, and so the design fits just any kind of screen that they have. If you put here the inspiration next to the end result, I say, she did a fabulous job here in trying to capture everything that was on there. Another thing that we wanted to replicate was the app icon itself. I wanted to go with something like this, and what you see here is the same again. So Jesus Christ, Son of God, but the Son of God at the bottom is Coptic instead of Greek. This design was proved to be too complex for an icon, and so we settled on this. And the work that she did produced this icon in the end. And so this is what the app looks now if you're using it in the home screen. And then came the more interesting part of this, which is the idea of the app is basically a collection of all of the service books for the church. And so the idea was to bring some kind of design from manuscripts from monasteries in Egypt, and to use those as the design for a particular service. And with that, it's time now to introduce the second artist, Erica. And she worked on some of these. I will show you 2 of them. The first of which is the Coptic Orologion, or what we call the Akbiyeh, from the Coptic word ak, meaning hour. And the unique thing about the Coptic Orologion is that it preserves a very old tradition about the daily offices, which is that every hour of prayer contains 12 psalms. So this is an ancient tradition that is attested to by John Cassian. He saw the monks doing this firsthand in Egypt, in the area of Wadi Natun, Skitis. And so this Coptic Orologion has 7 hours, 7 daily prayers, and of course you can see here Psalm 118 is just left alone here, as it is the very long acrostic psalm. But generally there is the 12 psalms in every prayer. So this was some more of the inspiration that we wanted to capture. What you see on the left-hand side here is now Arabic as well, being written on the cross. So this is "Hail to the cross, the weapon of the faithful." And we settled on this design, actually. In the end, my first request to Erica was, please make it look less like a carpet. So it was. So this was her first sketch, and this was the end result. We captured the design from here, and we tried to capture the idea of 7 daily prayers, and she did that by splitting the background, as you can see. So there are 4 prayers that are said in the morning and 3 at night. You can see she took a few liberties here and there to kind of make it work, but we tried to stay as faithful as we could to the original. The second one is Pascha, or Holy Week, or Passion Week. And to kind of appreciate the motivation for this one, I'll share a very brief thing about the Coptic rite of Good Friday. The Good Friday service culminates in an elevation of the cross. So we usually have, each parish will usually have a cross that looks pretty much like this, what you see in the photo. And it's supposed to be elevated up at the very end of the day as the faithful do prostrations in all 4 directions. And so this is very much like what I saw here in Gregory of Nyssa, let me share this with you. The cross is divided into 4 parts, so that there are the projections, 4 in number, from the central point. Because he who at the hour of his prearranged death was stretched upon it, it is he who binds together all things into himself, and by himself brings to one harmonious agreement the diverse natures of actual existences. All creation looks to him and is about and around him, and through him is coherent with itself. So he sees in the central point of the cross the crucified king who brings everything together. And so this is what the end of the Good Friday service in the Coptic Rite is about, this veneration of the cross and this elevation of the cross. And this elevation would take place upon this ambo which you see here on the left. So a couple of clergymen will take the cross and they will raise it up on the ambo as people are chanting hymns. And one of the hymns that are chanted here is the psalm saying, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever." And of course, the throne we mean here is the cross itself. And this is made explicit in another hymn for the Feast of the Cross. "Hail to you, cross, the throne of the King." Interestingly, as I've been speaking about how we are geared towards utility these days, most parishes today do not actually have an ambo at all. And so this causes some awkwardness in the rite, in that there is really nowhere to elevate this cross. And so part of the rite is missed today for the faithful people. This elevation of the cross and this enthronement of the king, we do see in ancient works as well, and perhaps on the right-hand side, not so ancient. The 13th century, this is one of my favorites. This is Christ wearing his crown, and he's wearing his priestly and royal vestments, even when on the cross. And so we wanted to capture this sentiment of Christ crucified, the cross, and at the same time, the anticipation of the resurrection. And to that, we turned to wall paintings on monasteries. The first of which we drew inspiration from was the Red Monastery in Sohag, Egypt, founded in the 4th century or so, and it's known for its distinctive red-green interior like you see here. Fortunately, these days, actually, you can view these monasteries from the comfort of your home. If you just Google the Red Monastery 360, you'll be able to find it. There is one painting in particular that does contain exactly what I've been describing, an elevated cross. And here we see Jesus Christ and Nika in the end. Jesus Christ is victorious, or Jesus Christ reigns. And the inscription says, "The cross to the age of victory, the cross the hope of Christians." The second inspiration we drew upon is the White Monastery, again in Sohag in Egypt. And especially here, take note of the white garment that surrounds the cross, pointing to the resurrection. And finally, the final design here is from the monastery of Saint Anthony. And this one, the inscription says, "The precious cross, the tree of life." You see on both sides there are angels sensing the cross. You see again this garment that surrounds it, although more colorful. And so this is what we based the design on, and here is the end result. We captured the elevated platform, we captured the Nika, so Jesus Christ reigns, and we took the white garment from the White Monastery to point to the resurrection as well. As you see, we always have to kind of make note that we can't really fit the angels on something like this, for example. So some of the elements that we'd love to include, we weren't able to, but we tried to capture the most we can. And let me now introduce you to the third and final artist that helped me with this project, Emmanuel. He has also had some experience with digital work as well as doing iconography. So you can see his work is really beautiful. And the service, I'll also talk about two services that he worked on. One of them is the unction of the sick. In the Coptic and the Greek rite, this rite is split into 7 parts. And the sources, again, both Coptic and Greek, will say that ideally it's 7 priests that do this rite. Each priest will do one part of the rite, and as soon as they begin one part, they will light a wick. And so there are 7 wicks that are involved in this rite. Usually the very customary scene that everybody is used to, at least in the Coptic world, is what you see on the right-hand side here, which is just a plate filled with some oil. And they usually make some cotton balls, and they have some kind of wick coming out of the cotton ball, and they make do with that. And I suppose that is because it can be done at home, so it's supposed to be something very practical. And at the same time, the sources really describe an oil lamp containing 7 wicks. So not really quite a plate at all. And I don't think I had seen an oil lamp before, a genuine oil lamp. And so that triggered a bit of a research into this kind of very old invention. And as you might expect, this was everywhere, really, everywhere. And I think the earliest attested one is 20,000 BC, an oil lamp, something like this. And you see, of course, that people were not really just satisfied with the regular oil lamp. They wanted to write things on them. So here, the light of Christ, the resurrection, is inscribed in Greek. And on the right-hand side, this is another one, Christ holding a crossed staff and trampling beasts. And he's surrounded with a halo, so you can see his head is right at the top here. And I think this really brought the reality of the Christian faith to everyday life. There is no sacred secular divide like we are used to nowadays. People would make the connection between something as mundane as the light in the oil lamp and the light of Christ, the resurrection. And I think this significance can be lost on us today. And a very good example of that is actually the museum that is holding the lamp on the right-hand side. This is the Met Museum in New York. This is their comment. Religious images used as decoration were thought to offer protection for the lamp's owner. I'm sure you're very familiar with this banal line that we see everywhere. And I think for modern minds, we cannot even fathom that religious images we used to make things beautiful and to make things meaningful, right? They must have had a practical purpose, we insist. And the practical purpose is to offer protection, right? Now, of course, there are amulets that do seem to be, for practical purpose of offering protection, so on and so forth. But why would you do that on an oil lamp, of all things? Now, for the rite that involved 7 wicks, I know that this can't be what they had in mind until I came upon what you see on the left here. So this is another Christian oil lamp that looks like a foot, but it has these 2 fish. So this is a Christian oil lamp. And you see here there's room for 5 wicks. At the same time, this oil that's in the lamp is actually meant to be used when the rite is over to anoint the sick. And so I also needed a design that would be open, like what you see on the right-hand side, so that the priest can actually reach into the oil and anoint it. And so we tried to use all of these artifacts to come up with something that I hope will encourage churches to have this kind of thing when they are conducting the service rather than a plate. So here you see room for 7 wicks specifically. And of course, we captured this idea of having an association with the light of Christ. So Emmanuel had one of his icons inscripted here on the lamp. And finally, funerals. The Coptic funeral service is quite unique in that the chanted psalms, the lections that are read, and the prayers that are said are all variable depending on who exactly passed away. And so if it was a woman, we read Matthew 26, the account of the woman who pours fragrant oil on Christ, to point to the woman that devoted her life as service to Christ, and likening her to the woman who pours the oil. We have a unique service for a woman that died during childbirth. And the lection here is John 16. A woman, when she is in labor, has sorrow. As she has given birth to a child, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. If it's a young boy, look how wonderful, like the choice of psalmody here. My father and my mother abandoned me, but the Lord took me to himself. And the gospel reading is the raising of the woman's son in name. If it's a young girl, upon the Lord I lean from my birth, from my mother's womb. It was you who sheltered me. And it's the raising of Jairus' daughter that we read in the gospel. When I first started to look into what design could really fit the funeral, I think this was one of the most difficult ones to come up with, because usually nowadays you will have the coffin and maybe some flowers on it, and that's it. So there wasn't really that much of an influence from older burial rites or burial designs. But my wife gave me the idea of looking at some kind of covers for coffins. And so this is what you see on the right-hand side here. This is again a cross with a wreath underneath it. 5th century, may have been used as a sanctuary curtain and then a burial pall to cover a coffin. And that pushed me to also look into funerary slabs in Egypt. And so these were the kinds of things that I found. You see, of course, there's a lot of crosses and there's a lot of letters at the top. There was one thing that kept coming up in these funeral slabs, which is this right here. And of course, this is none other than the ancient Egyptian Ankh. This is the hieroglyphic symbol for the word life. And you see here Horus, the god, giving life to Pharaoh. So he gives him this Ankh. Of course, in Christian Egypt, the Christians found a lot of resonance with this symbol, and they started putting it on things like textiles. These are 3 examples of using this ankh, but as a cross. They call it kratsinsata. This became very popular in manuscripts as well. This is I think one of the very famous designs. You've probably seen it before. This is a Coptic book of Acts from the 4th century. And of course, funeral slabs. What more of a symbol could be used here that is more appropriate than the life that cross gives upon the person who has died? And so in this one in particular, see here, this is the Alpha and the Omega, the cross in the middle, and you see again this Ankh. The one on the very left here may have been part of a bigger design that did have some kind of ankh, because they usually have a round circle at the top with the cross at the bottom. And you see, of course, the one in the middle and the one on the right-hand side. The one on the right-hand side is basically all that. So the entire slab is this ankh here with a smiley face, the person who was departed, and again the wreath. The design we settled on finally was this piece from the Roma Museum, and Emmanuel did a fabulous job in recreating that into his work, and this was the final result. So we incorporate this burial coffin and the ankh with the cross on top of it. And so this brings me to the end. I wanted to leave ample time for discussion and to hear from you. And I'm sure this is a topic that is shared across all traditions, that something has happened to our liturgical books and the way we use things in general, that I think we need to be a lot more intentional than we were back then in the day. I think back in the day, it seems scribes took this naturally. It was second nature to them. I think for us now, it's a bit of an uphill battle. Probably again due to the fact that printers, when they were invented, they weren't really able to do much. Now that we have overcome all of the hurdles with regards to technology, we can print anything, we've kind of forgotten the craft. And so I've been trying to speak about the importance of such art as much as I can, especially to younger people. And I tell them, if you find yourself working on a liturgy book, please dedicate some time to making the book look beautiful. Just as much time as you've devoted a lot of time to making it practical and purposeful, and it's going to be great for that. Also remember to spread 20% of that time in trying to make something beautiful as well. And I think at the end of the day, this is what communicates this divine truth that is all around us, this divine beauty that we can see everywhere. Thank you very much for your interest, and please, I would love to hear about if you've had similar experiences in your churches and your traditions. I'd be very interested to know.
Thank you very much, Mina. Wonderful. Could you please unshare your screen? Just before I make a comment, I'd like to share something with the viewers. This is Mina, a fresh PhD student at the University of Sydney. I think it was 2023. It's written there. Together with me at the University of Sydney Libraries, rare books and special collections, and we were looking at some Coptic and Copto-Arabic manuscripts. Time flies, Mina. And I'm so happy that you are able to pursue your own interest, your passion for Christian art, not only by way of teaching at St. Cyril's, but also via research. I'm certain that we'll hear more from you, including in this area of, let's call it, popular culture, because now with that app, you bring everything, including your research and the efforts of your colleagues into this public arena to give us a sense of beauty. It's something that our world needs so badly. I mean, we see ugliness everywhere in behavior and in the lack of aesthetics and morality and so on and so forth. And yeah, everything that we can do is service to the kingdom. So thank you so much for this. I have a few things to say, but I'd rather have the other attendees have a chance to make a comment or ask you a question. So, anyone up for? Please, Con.
Mina, thank you so much for that really wonderful presentation. I'm just sorry we didn't have more people here to witness it. Just really beautiful, and I really was struck by the museum's interpretations of, needing the function, the protection function, rather than just appreciating the desire for beauty and meaning. And yeah, I thought that was a point very well made, and so revealing, isn't it? Of the kind of interpretations of of the past. But yeah, thanks so much. I do have a question. Just and sorry if you mentioned this and I missed it, but what was the sort of timeline for the creation of your app? Like how long did it take to pull together?
I've been working on it for uh, a year and a half now, and it's
Okay.
still ongoing. So
Okay.
um, part of it is also presenting to people a lot of the liturgical hymns, liturgical prayers, and so on that were kind of forgotten and lost in the tradition. So there's a lot of time that goes into comparing textual variants and doing critical
Mm-hmm.
editions and so on.
Hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you.
That's pretty much part of his research, and that is Mina's. Yeah, looking at these things, I remember my first contact with his work. He was finishing his master's studies in theology at St. Cyril's, and I was fortunate to be elected by this young fellow to be his supervisor, and it was a joyride, and yeah, for me it was traveling towards Wonderland, looking at the richness of the Coptic liturgical tradition, and what he does is more like an archaeology of forgotten texts, which he mentioned, but also an archaeology of this sense of comprehensiveness when it comes to using an object for, let's say, private devotion, but also for public worship. You know, why we should try to embellish and enrich our lives in prayer, being surrounded by the bleakness and blandness of how do you call those walls of text?
Mm. The privilege is all mine, Father. I mean, it was a privilege of mine to, be your student and learn from you all these years. And even the photo that you shared at the University of Sydney, the manuscript that we found there uh, was actually for private use. So this was a manuscript of the Coptic Orologian was for private use, and it was still beautiful. So it was just one person who commissioned this for their own use, and they picked a scribe that would be able to.
Yeah,
Uh,
keep going.
they picked a scribe that would be able to still give them beauty as they pray, and they were not just interested in, okay, give me just the text so I know what to say.
Yeah. So that was another photo taken on the day with some of the manuscripts Mina looked at, and actually for a few weeks he helped the library to catalog them. Those were uncatalogued resources in the library. Um, yeah. So look, I think Con already nailed what I wanted to ask you about. So this connection between prayer or the prayerful environment, the sacred environment of prayer and worship, beauty and meaning. And Con already highlighted this connection that you made. It's not only the text that matters. Of course, in the beginning was the word, but things didn't end there, isn't it? Because the word took flesh. And the body has a face, and the body has, I don't know, mannerisms and so on and so forth. That's expression of a person. So it's somehow a deep Christian longing for this kind of validation of our life, of our nature, of our culture, where everything becomes an embodiment of, an expression of the word. In other words, in this case, the words of the Psalms and other forms of prayer and so on and so forth. Um, Let me be, I don't know if this is something that you're interested in, but let me be, let's say, or play the theologian. Do you see any anthropological or existential relevance to this kind of comprehensiveness of the ancient Christian manuscripts, where the word was associated with beauty, beauty that added meaningfulness, perhaps, to the whole object? But is there something anthropologically relevant in this? Feel free to deny uh, the necessity of answering.
I think there must be a connection, right? Because I see this everywhere. So it's not just the manuscripts, it's not just the churches and their architecture, but it's everything. Even the buildings today that we erect, most of them are ugly. The bridges that we erect are ugly. Part of it, I think, is the obsession with around utility. I think human beings are now obsessed about utility. The more important thing in erecting a building is how many apartments can I fill in this because I want to make more money. It's not about making something beautiful for people to look at. I'm not really sure what's the answer to this. It's quite a sorry state of affairs today, really. And this seems to have been very, very vivid in people's minds in Europe, especially. So, traveling to Europe and looking at all the older churches, even these Gothic churches, uh, they went to great lengths because they had something to work for. They saw the divine as a goal to work for. And I imagine that all of this asceticism that went to things like building churches and creating manuscripts, it must have had a lasting impact on people's lives.
Yeah. Which is, I assume, what Sandra means. Sandra, would you like to ask your question directly, please?
Not so much a question as an observation. The only Christian traditions that I have seen where art and beauty and mystery are related are in the Coptic and Orthodox churches. The only other church I've seen use sacred imagery for teaching lessons is the Lutheran Church, where they have a Bible survey diploma that people do called the Bethel series, where they use images to help people remember scripture and memorize it. So for me, this deep longing for beauty when the world is not so beautiful, for me, is disguised as a search for God.
Yeah, we seem to think of imagery now as things for children. So you only find images now in children books.
Yeah. Whereas I think what we are all saying, one way or the other, is that it's profoundly human to contribute, to bring something, something that doesn't necessarily or isn't necessarily immediately sacred, but it's like sanctified activity when we embellish the space where we pray, where we embellish the books where from which we read the scriptures, or sing the hymns in congregations and so on and so forth. I think there's something missing from our modern culture, which is through successive stages of secularization, ended up by dissociating beauty from meaning, both of them from our existence. As you said, Mina, we build bridges and apartments of blocks and blocks of flats and stuff like that, with no regard for meaning, for beauty, for something that enriches life. We are just inhabiting a place which becomes like a bedroom or something. Then we go somewhere else to work in a place that again is as uninspiring as Skyrise or something. What you are bringing to the fore with this work of yours, your research, your work together with your colleagues and artists, is this sense of a fuller humanity, around the humanity, where beauty isn't some kind of footnote. It's part and parcel of our trajectory in this life. And what you prove here through your work is that in reality, as believers, we still need it because we are still human beings and we have to somehow contribute to make that space our own space or space of encounter with God, where instead of going with what you said, the rift between sacred and secular or sacred and profane, we bridge the gap and we enjoy a fuller existence. So it's more than just an aesthetic exercise. What you're doing, the way I see it, the way I feel it, so to speak. I visited your app a couple of times. Uh, it's something that is profoundly human and Christian. And you showed with the examples, from various ages, especially early Christianity and the Middle Ages, you have shown that Christians did not shy away from embellishing everything, but not in a stupid way. I'd like to make a comment, or actually to ask you a question. How do you see that integration of the Ankh, the ancient Egyptian cross in this whole imagery? So you have funeral, whatever, the funeral setting, slabs, inscriptions, and so on and so forth. You have the cross as the symbol of the tree of life, But on the other hand, you have the ancient crosses. How do you feel about this as, well, you are Egyptian. Do you see this as a validation of your roots?
Yeah, of course. I see that there's a lot of beauty in, let's say, the Egyptian Ankh, and how even Christians did not shy away from things that were, so-called pagan. They understood what they really pointed to. They understood that they really point to Christ. They really point to the resurrection, and they made it their own. And I imagine there are thousands of these stories across all kinds of geographical locations that I'm actually, this is why I'm interested in the book that you pointed out, Father, at the very beginning. I hope that it will contain some of these.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. And I believe that this is, I mean, what you're doing, it can generate an entire school, where everyone digs these forgotten roots of their own cultures. I mean, because we are Christian, and this is what brings us together, including tonight. But we're also have to remember the other side of us, and to embody, our Christianity into forms, cultural, artistic forms that are specific to what we are. And this is, it'll be like a wave of enthusiasm for rediscovery and for mutual enrichment, because what you are doing now, you are showing to other versions of Christianity, including my own. And at some point, you showed a liturgy of my brand of Orthodoxy, with the book being as empty, as desertified as any other modern publication. Why? Yeah. So we all need to dig up this form. So what you do is amazing. Well,
Thank you so much.
our time is up. But I would not want us to depart without a word of wisdom from Mina.
Oh.
So an encouragement to other Christians, say, what would be the lesson of your experience as a researcher, as a lecturer, as a worker in the arts, so to speak, together with genuine artists?
I'm sure there is a lot in your tradition as well that everybody would love to hear about. I mean, even for me, I'm not really an artist of any kind. I've never really been good at drawing anything, and yet I could still see the beauty when I see it in all of these kinds of places. And so I'm sure that this has enriched me very much to be able to work on contributing now to the modern world in trying to preserve some of that beauty to, say, my community. And luckily, there are a few people, Copts, doing the same thing as well with printed books and so on. I'm sure all of our liturgical books across all of our traditions could use a little bit of beauty.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you very much for your interest. Thank you, Father and Professor Campbell, for the invitation again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so there's another seminar coming up in September. We'll make the appropriate announcements closer to that time, or perhaps we can begin much earlier, which would a seminar which will be chaired by Professor Campbell, having as speaker from St. Andrew's Greek Orthodox Theological College, Dr. Andrew Mellis. So we had the Coptic tradition, we'll have the Greek tradition, and then again in October, a scholar from Iraq who will be talking to us from Baghdad about Assyrian Christianity and her work in the area of visual arts in the setting of Assyrian churches, especially in Iraq, Dr. Dalia Aziz. On this note, once again, Mina, thank you so much. This was very enriching, beautiful. Thank you all for participation. May God bless us all.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.